Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to talk to you about my honest opinion about the new PRS SE Silver Sky, the John Mayer signature model. So the goal of this video is to give kind of a review on the John Mayer SE Silver Sky, but more so just my honest opinion. You never know with reviews these days if people are just trying to get a sale or whatever, but I just want to make sure that all of you who might be interested in this guitar really get the honest truth on its overall tone, playability, quality of construction, all that good stuff. And yeah, we will go through a few of the specs just to make sure that you kind of have all in one type of video, so you know what you're up against when you get this guitar. But it's been a week since I've had this guitar. Um, really loving it. I posted a few videos, and you'll see some of those demos later in this video as well. But just a quick rundown on the specs, just so you know. Starting with the body. The body is made of poplar wood, which a lot of us might think of as cheap and expensive, but it's really just another kind of hardwood alternative to alder. And I'm really surprised that PRS didn't go with basswood, honestly. It's finished in their stone blue, which I think is probably the best captured color out of all four of the current SE Silver Sky colors. Some of the other ones, you never know if it's too yellow or the dragon fruit almost appears to be a little bit more red in some aspects, but loving the stone blue so far. Um, the pickups, these are the 635 JMS. So those are the import models, the SE line for the 635 JM pickups that you would get in the core model. They've done basically the same thing for the switch tip. It's kind of got that kind of a more mass to it, still kind of that plastic, but really easy to flip between the pickup positions on this guitar. For the knobs, they did the same exact thing as they did on the core model. So it has kind of a little bevel to it on the top, and the ridges are a little bit wider, so you can really feel it. Don't know quite yet if those numbers are going to wear off like on the core model. We all know that those ones end up wearing out pretty easily. Um, Still has the cool little ridge right here on the input jack plate. And then going to the bridge. We all know it's the 2-point trim system, which I think is a great thing, especially for this kind of guitar, because it's going to be easier to adjust than the 6-screw bridge with the 6 saddles that they gave on the core model. You just have to worry about 2 of them, and it's going to stay in tune really well. I messed with a core model, did a little setup on it for a friend, and I found that adjusting all 6 screws to a specific height was a little cumbersome for my taste. Still have the awesome PRS carve right here on the lower horn, and I don't know if it really serves much of a purpose. I guess when you start getting up into the higher frets, it does allow for ease of access. Moving on to the neck, we have a rosewood fingerboard, and this is like true rosewood. Mine is, it's very dark. You can see in the video, but also I'll make sure to have some pictures as well. And this is a 8.5 inch radius, and kind of my theory behind it is just that most of the people who are going to be playing these kind of guitars might be maybe a intermediate type of player who might want a flatter radius to get maybe a little bit lower action. I find it very comfortable. There is a big difference when I switch between this guitar and my Michael SX, which has a 12-inch radius, but overall I'm able to get a very similar action. It's about 4.5 64ths of an inch on the bass strings, and just a hair above 4 64ths of an inch on the treble strings. The frets, they're kind of a narrow medium jumbo, I would say. They're tall enough to where I'm not feeling much of the fingerboard, which is great. On the back, we have a maple neck, and it's finished in satin. And you'll kind of get my opinion on the back of the neck a little bit later. Everything up here is pretty much the same, except we have a truss rod cover that's made of the same plastic, probably as the tuning heads. The nut is different. It's made of synthetic material, and it's also kind of that, it almost looks like a PRS nut that you would find on maybe a core model, but definitely not the core Silver Sky model. And same type of headstock with the reverse look to it. And the tuners, they're that vintage style, but the only thing is they do not have the locking tuners on them. And I think one of the coolest features about this is that the company who actually, or the factory that makes this guitar, their name is on the back. Kind of like what I've been hearing is that it just gives them a little bit of pride in the construction of this guitar. But let's go ahead and we'll play a little sound demo clip, and then we'll talk about my overall impressions on the tone and the playability and the quality.
All right, so now that you've listened to some of the sound demos, we're going to talk about some of the strongest features on this guitar. Let's start with the fretwork. I'm going to make sure to post some pictures throughout the video of the frets. I just want to show you how great fretwork these are. When I bought the guitar, knowing it was an SE model, I was skeptical what I was going to get. I had an SE Hollow Body 2 a few years back, and the fretwork was okay, but nowhere near as good as this. I feel like if John Mayer has his name on this guitar, there's no compromise in tone and playability. No way. Maybe in some build material, but definitely not in those two ways, just because, I mean, he's John Mayer. He wouldn't want his name on a piece of junk. So frets, you can tell from the pictures that they're really nicely rounded over. There's also a picture from Dylan Talks Tone where he took a picture of a Fender Player Series, which this is being compared to just because of price point, and the frets on this guitar side by side, and you can see an obvious difference. The Player Series, they're just snipped at the end. These ones are rounded over nicely. And you can also see that they're really polished. You don't really get that very much with an import style guitar, but they really took a lot of time to make this feel great up and down the neck. And still with the frets, I feel like I was able to get the action down to where I really like it. I like my action low, but not too low to the point where I'm having trouble getting under the string, especially for bends and vibratos. But I feel like it still leaves enough of that slinkiness feel to the strings. So I would say it's kind of a medium-low action, but especially when I'm doing really wide bends, this thing does not choke out on me at all. I feel like I've played it all over the neck, and especially like with the high E string, when you do those minor third bends, you kind of like, I don't know if I want to hit that note because I'm afraid it's going to choke out, but this guitar does not do that. They leveled the guitar perfectly. And another part about this that I like is the fingerboard. I would say it's slightly rolled, not an extreme roll to it, but it's just very comfortable.
going up and down the neck. I don't feel like I'm slicing my hands at all. And then let's move on to the pickups. The pickups are probably one of the more hyped parts of this guitar. So we all know that the Silver Sky pickups in the core model are a mix between a 64 S style guitar, or we'll just say a Strat from John's collection, and a 63. So somewhere in between. And they have that low output to it, and that kind of what John describes as the highs and the lows and the lows and the highs. You get that with this guitar for sure. These pickups are just ever so slightly hotter than the core model, and comparing them to the Lawler Blondes in my Mike Lowell SX, I did have to make just a couple minor adjustments to the gain on some of my fractal settings, but not by much at all. But these have good output to them. What's really cool is all three of these are the same pickup. I didn't measure them, but we all know that from their advertising, these are the same ones, but they're just in different spots. So that just keeps everything really balanced. I feel like you get the really nice in-between quackiness of the 2 and 4 position, and when you want to go to the neck, it's nice and full, but then you go to the bridge, you're not getting all that ice pickiness. But again, that's an EQ thing too, so just dial in your amp or your modeler, and you'll get some nice balanced tone out of these. Let's move on to probably the one, I wouldn't call it a disappointment, because this is still a great guitar. I love playing it, and I wouldn't say this would be something that would deter someone from buying it, but it's the back of the neck. Now the carve is great. It's a nice C. I would say it's kind of a medium C. But the problem is the finish. There's a lot of spots that are great, nice and satin smooth, but you'll see in a couple pictures, there's a few little minor finish bumps. Like I'm feeling them on the treble side right here. There's some back here near the 3rd fret. There's some right here near the 12th to 15th fret. But I was a little taken back by it when I first played it, and honestly, it's not a huge deal to me, just because I'm not really worrying about that as much. It's not something that's going to slow me down. It's more of a preference and a comfort thing to me. Personally, I love a satin neck compared to a lacquered neck, just to make sure that I'm not sticking anywhere on the back of the neck. It's just super fast. But if you're in the market for one of these, just know that it might be a different feel for you. Mine's just ever so slightly bumpy, and you can kind of hear, the microphone can pick it up. I mean, it seems a little unfinished, but not that bad at all. But overall, I think that the strengths of this guitar heavily outweigh something minor like the finish on the back of the neck. And I'm in contact with PRS to see what I can do. Maybe some steel wool on the back to knock those parts down, but it's so minor that I'm just being nitpicky right now. But we'll play some more sound demos for you just to sign us off. But if you're wanting one of these, it's well worth it to just put your name on the pre-order list and wait your turn in line. Don't go spending $1,300 on this guitar, even though it is still an amazing guitar, especially for the money. Like, I'm really surprised what they give you for $849 out the door. But don't buy one of these guitars upcharged. I understand that people need to make their fees back from like Reverb and eBay, but just wait your turn. These things are gonna pop up. We know that production is gonna ramp up at some point, but I hope you enjoyed this video, and here's some more sound demos for you.